Good mythical afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Mr. Ayala with another vlog for you. This vlog is Aggressors Invade Other Nations. This is the prologue to World War II. As always, please make sure you're writing your notes and that you are listening to this vlog to get the information that is not written. Please be aware there is not a vlog question or discussion question for the doobly-doo this time, so please make sure that you're ready to go on the due date because there may be a pop quiz or something like that. By the way, that's a major hint. Yet again, this is Aggressors Invade Other Nations, the prologue to World War II, and please make sure that you view this as many times as you need to be successful. So to start with, what are our objectives or things that we need to know by the end of this lesson? Well, the first thing is what started World War II in Asia, Africa, and in Europe. Who are the aggressive nations? What occurred during the Spanish Civil War? What did the democracies in Europe try to do to stop the spread of the war? And what was its effects? What were the effects of appeasement? What did the Munich Conference solve, and did it work? And what is a non-aggression pact? So to start off, we're going to talk about Japan. So in 1930, the militarists are taking over Japan, and unlike the fascists like Mussolini in Italy or Hitler in Germany, they don't want to change the government. They just want to restore the idea of the military having control over the emperor. Remember, the shogun was on top of the emperor when we did the Japanese hierarchy. That's what they want to restore. So they end up keeping Emperor Hirohito as the head of government, but they end up controlling him like a puppet. So the generals used him to do what they wanted. In 1931, Japan invades Manchuria, which is the upper part of China over here. I do apologize for that. And they invaded in 1931 mostly for its resources. This was the first test of the League of Nations.
Do you want the printing?
And it failed. Japan will leave the League shortly after, because you got to remember the League's whole idea was to stop wars. And if they can't stop Japan from invading China, what's their purpose? So Japan just gets up and leaves. Well, Japan then invades the mainland China over a border incident in 1937. So by 1937, the World War II has already started in Asia. From there, we go to Europe. So we know that the Nazis Germany under the Nazis and Mussolini's Italy begin to invade other nations. In 1935, Italy invades Ethiopia, and yet again the League protests, but still does nothing. So France and Great Britain gives in to Italy to try to promote peace. So now the war has begun in Africa. Then Hitler starts to divide the Versailles Treaty. And if you remember the Versailles Treaty after World War I, it said that Germany could not create an army, a navy, or an air force. Hitler just ignores that and does it anyway. The League yet again protests, but still does nothing. So by March 7th of 1936, Germany invades the Rhineland. And what the Rhineland was, it was a demilitarized zone right here between Germany and France. And in 1936, Germany invades the Rhineland. Great Britain and France decide they're going to try to appeasement or giving in to their aggressor for peace. So they're like, hey, Germany, we'll let you take this, but stop. Some historians say that this will be one of the biggest mistakes in all of history, because if you give an aggressor what they want and you don't ever put up a fight or make some noise, they're just going to think it's okay and keep doing it, because they don't know that what they're doing is incorrect. And because of this appeasement, we get all these different effects. So the first thing is it strengthens Hitler's power and prestige in Germany. Because if you remember, the Treaty of Versailles said, hey, you know what? You're the one that started World War I. You're the ones in trouble. It's all your fault. And then Hitler decides to completely ignore the Treaty of Versailles, makes him a big European power yet again. So what happens, this changes the balance of power in Germany's favor in Europe, because now Germany had no power between World War I and World War II. Now they're regaining their ability, they're taking more land, and Great Britain and France are doing nothing to more or less say, hey, chill out. Then France and Belgium are now going to be open to attack, because who's going to stop him? If Great Britain's not going to say anything, France isn't saying anything, the U.S. is in isolation, not saying anything, China's being invaded, Japan is attacking everyone in Asia, who's going to stop them? And also, because of this weak response, Great Britain and France encourages Hitler to be more aggressive and speed up his expansion. Because why is he going to do anything that these democracies say if nothing's gonna happen? There's no point. So from there, then Germany makes an alliance with Italy and Japan and creates what we call the Axis powers. These would be the aggressor nations in World War II. So we have that Japan started it in Asia, we have that Italy started in Africa, and Germany will start it in Europe. And during the same time, the Spanish Civil War is occurring. So Spain ends up collapsing the monarch, and it collapses into a civil war between an elected government, which they call themselves the Republicans, and the fascists, who are led by a guy named Francisco Franco. So what Hitler and Mussolini does, he send airplanes, tanks, army people, all these things more or less use this as a testing ground for their fighting styles. And they also want to help the fascists and Franco, because then they may have another ally. The democracies like Britain, France, the US just stay neutral. While the Soviet Union is like, we must stop the fascists. They're not like us. And they decide to help the Republicans. But so the fascists under Francisco Franco have more military weapons, more power. So in 1939, he ends up winning the Civil War and becomes dictator. But he does stay out of World War II. So the democratic nations try to preserve peace. So Great Britain and France are making more concessions to the fascists. The US is staying neutral and supports the idea of isolationism, which is the belief that political ties with other countries should be avoided. The United States looked back at what happened during World War I, the one time that they added more political ties to Europe, and saw that all they did was lose money. They lost money, they lost men, and it really wasn't worth the blood or treasure, as we would say. And then Germany decides they're going to announce plans to absorb all of Austria and Czechoslovakia to create the Third Reich, or the Third German Empire. So in 1938, Germany invades Austria. France and Great Britain still do nothing. Then in 1938, Germany invades Czechoslovakia to grab the Sudetenland. Czechoslovakia asks for help from Great Britain and France, and they still do nothing. So yet again, let's look at our map. So we know that over here, we have the Rhineland, which is demilitarized, which was taken over by Germany. We have the Sudetenland in Czechoslovakia, which is where most of the German-speaking people were, which Germany also wants to take. So France and Britain began this idea of appeasement again, and they bring that to the Munich Conference. And they really want to find out what to do with Czechoslovakia's Sudetenland. So you want to be a little bit aware of that. And what's interesting is the Czechs weren't even invited. Even though it's their land, they just ignored them. So the Sudetenland is given to Germany for peace. The Czechs are like, hey, that's my land. What the heck? You're giving it to Germany for no apparent reason. And you didn't even invite me. What the heck? 6 months later, Hitler's like, you know what? You ain't going to declare war on me. So he takes over all of Czechoslovakia and ignores the Munich Conference. And yet again, Great Britain and France still aren't doing anything. Then Hitler and France say they're going to declare war if Hitler invades Poland, which is what he wants. Hitler, knowing his history and reviewing, ignores them and creates a non-aggression pact with the USSR. More or less, even though fascism and communism are complete polar opposites of each other, the Soviet Union and Hitler are like, hey, you know what? We don't like each other, but let's not fight each other. So they say, we're not going to fight each other, we're not going to invade each other, that's what we're going to do. So instead, they decide, let's split up Poland. So Hitler invades from the west, Stalin invades from the east, and they split it in half. Now what are they going to do? So the Allies, Great Britain and France, said, hey, we told you we're going to declare war if you invade Poland. But now they also have to worry about the USSR. Are they are they part of the Axis powers? Are they just randomly there? What are they going to do? So we got to figure out what will the Allies do after Hitler invades Poland and this non-aggression pact with the USSR. Because they have given so many concessions, they have appeased those aggressors so much. When do they have to do something to stop them? So please make sure that you review this as many times as you need. And as always, don't forget to be awesome.